What's up? I've got a Toyota Motorhome 1978 Toyota Mini Mirage, and she is a beast. Little mini motorhome, but 78 Toyota Hilux truck, Hi-Lux. If you've got one of these and you need to drop the tank, it's very easy. All you have to do is jack it up under the pumpkin and then get jack stands on either side under the axle, bring it back down on those jack stands, and then this tank is about a little over a foot deep, so you need, at least that. I've got mine 18 inches off the ground from here to the ground, and then pulling that 14 millimeter drain plug, draining the gas into a suitable vessel. And then once that gets done, there's 3 bolts on either side of the tank. There's those 3. The other ones are down there on that end, just under here, if you look for them. And then up in here, you got to disconnect the fill tube and the breather tube. But those are very straightforward. And then, once it's drained here, I'm going to put the plug back in. I'll lower down the front end of the gas tank, and then I'll lower down the back end. But it's pretty straightforward, detaching it from the hanger there. And then if you want to put it back on, it's just kind of reverse order. But I'm having someone get the rust out of this and put a new liner in it, because we've been having fuel delivery issues for a while, and we've known it's related to rust. We just haven't dealt with it. We've got a way just cleaning the rust out and then changing fuel filters. But we broke down and we're tired of it, and it is time to finally make this happen. So yay, we're gonna be able to be back on the road again soon, hopefully, and the carburetor, if we're getting that done soon, I think she'll be good for another 50,000 miles or so. I just wanted to show you guys something here. Once you get the tank off, the fuel sending unit is attached inside the tank, as is the fuel pump. So you remove these 6 bolts here, and it just lifts out. But as you're dropping the tank, watch out for the fuel line that goes from the fuel pump to the carburetor. You're gonna have to detach that once you actually drop the tank, and be prepared, gas will come out of it. So be prepared either with a plug or fold it over, kink it and clamp it or whatever, but just know that fuel's gonna come out of that when you remove the hose. And then over here, you've got a fuel return line, I believe, where if excess fuel comes back, that's where it enters. And you've got an electrical connector here that you're gonna have to detach before you can bring the tank all the way out. And obviously, before you start any of this, disconnect your battery. If you're in an RV and you don't know which battery supplies power to this unit, it should be your truck battery, not your house battery, but good idea to just go ahead and disconnect any live batteries that could be supplying electricity, because when you're working in an open vented environment and you've got gas fumes present, the last thing that you want is to create an electrical spark. One thing to be aware of before you start here is that on the front, the hanger, the nuts that those bolts are mounting into are actually fixed in the hanger. In the rear, this hanger, can you see it there? This hanger that it's attached to, the nuts actually are free floating on top of here. So as you pull those bolts, be watching for those, don't lose them. And when you're putting the tank back up, you want to mount it to the front first with those fixed holes, and then you may need to use a wrench or something to hold the nuts on top here to actually get those bolts seated and tight. I did spray some PB Blaster on all this a couple days ago. That way it'd soak in and make my life a lot easier. I'm just gonna kind of support it with my knee, wrestle her down to the ground here. I knew I needed to disconnect the lead down here. Whatever it is. When you remove those screws. If, like me, you're dealing with rust in your tank, you probably don't want to put it all back together with the same fuel pump. If there's damage or if it's already failing, mine's probably 42 years old, then you're going to have to drop that tank off again pretty soon, and I don't really want to have to do that. So I went ahead and got a fuel pump. Be careful, there's some in-tank and out-of-tank. Mine was the in-tank style, and I was able to find it at Napa. I don't have that part number right now, but the in-tank one is actually what fits a 1975 Toyota Corolla. The one that Napa had listed for my 78 pickup did not fit. It was meant to be mounted outside the tank, but the 75 Corolla one did. So in order to replace this fuel sending unit is mounted on top of the tank. These 6 bolts come out pretty easy. You've got connectors here, and you've got this fuel return line that comes in. Or actually, no, that's the line that goes out to the carburetor, to the fuel filter, and then ultimately to the carburetor. So the way that you replace this is pretty easy. You've got this bracket right here at the top that holds the pump on, and the first bolt will loosen the bracket, and then there's another bolt screw right here to take that bracket off entirely. The other thing that you're going to have to unscrew is this little screw down here. So this screw, when you take it out, it is holding the ground wire, and if you just take this screw out and then this screw out, you can kind of wiggle it free there. The strainer, here's the old strainer I've been trying to find a replacement for. You can see it's all nasty. It was not going to do me any good reusing that. So I managed to find a Delphi strainer. It was pretty hard to find this, so if you're trying to find it, Delphi part number BFS0009. That is the strainer that needs to go on the bottom of there. So anyway, you undo these bolts, get the brackets, this comes out. Making sure that on the outlet from the pump here, you've got some sort of check valve in line before it goes out to the carburetor. So I'm going to be installing a check valve right here. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward. The shorter terminal here is your ground. The longer terminal is your positive coming from the battery. You can't really get those mixed up because they are different sizes. So yeah, as far as doing it, it should only take you 20 minutes to take it apart, put it all back together. If you're trying to get the strainer off on the bottom, just pull harder. It does just pull straight off. There's no clips or anything. But yeah, good luck. So here's a shot side by side, old fuel strainer. I don't think that's doing me any favors. And then the new fuel strainer, I should be able to get fuel. These fuel delivery issues are not going to stand a chance after this job. Before you put the fuel sending unit back in, you're going to want to make sure that underneath this gasket is really nice and clean. There's no dirt, debris, and then you want to make sure that you've got a clean, preferably new gasket. My fuel pump came with one, but if there's any degradation, you need to get a new gasket because you want it to seal. One more quick tip as you're putting this back together, you want to make sure that the float can move freely. I noticed right before I put mine back in here that one of my ground cables was kind of in the way, so I made sure to tuck it back behind here where it can't get in the way of that float movement. Alright, so I have successfully replaced the fuel pump here. We got a new strainer on the bottom. This hose you can see coming up, we got clamps. None of the clamps are touching anything else metal as far as the contacts. Hose coming out of the pump. One-way check valve right there. Hose going out to the carburetor. And then I have remembered to reattach my ground, which connects down here to the bottom clamp, as well as my positive, which is coming through this little connector right there. So yeah, once you get that all back together, then you're ready to put that back down inside your tank. And when you mount the tank back up, good luck. As you put this thing back together, the hose going out to the carburetor is going to point towards the front of the vehicle. So this fuel sending unit is going down in, you got the float, and then got to get the screen in, and it's going to go down and then tilt towards the front. So you're actually sucking gas, you know, closer up here. You don't want it to be pointed back towards the back of the tank. To get this bad boy back in there, I've got the electrical hooked back up, the ground hooked back up. I need this line coming from the fuel filter and carburetor to be hooked into where the fuel is escaping the pump. I need this return line from the carburetor to be hooked back into the return. So I'm using my body for the tank to rest on, and I'll just hoist it up far enough that I can connect those things and then start driving bolts into this hanger here. Once you get it on the front, then you can just do the rear, keeping in mind that those nuts are free floating and you may have to use a wrench to stop them from spinning.